Binge guide. The next show is here. You're searching for that next must-see movie experience, the one that'll have you like on the edge of your seat from start to finish. Well, get ready, because today we're diving deep into Final Destination Bloodlines, a film that's already making serious waves and looks set to be your next horror obsession.
Exactly, yeah. For anyone familiar with the Final Destination universe, you kind of know the drill.
Oh, yeah.
From relentless dance with death after someone narrowly escapes some huge catastrophe.
Right.
But Bloodlines, which is the 6th film, it's taking us back to the roots of one family's like terrifying entanglement with fate. It centers on a college student, Stephanie, and this deadly legacy she seems to inherit.
Okay, so this isn't just, another random group of unlucky people. There's a specific history here.
Precisely. Stephanie's having these nightmares.
Yeah.
Right. But they're not random. They're echoing a disaster her grandmother survived decades ago, all thanks to a premonition she had.
Ah, the classic setup.
Yeah, it's familiar for the series You Cheat Death, there are consequences, but this time it seems those consequences are like really deeply embedded in Stephanie's actual family line. They're all caught in this cycle, triggered by that initial disruption of Death's plan way back when.
So it's kind of like a curse, almost. This one act of survival just rippling through generations. And wow, it's been quite a while since the last Final Destination, hasn't it?
It really has. Final Destination 5. Gosh, that was back in 2011.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a 14-year gap, which, in movie terms is a pretty significant chunk of time. And the buzz around Bloodlines definitely suggests that absence has made the horror-loving heart grow fonder, you could say.
You can absolutely say that again. The trailer just exploded, didn't it? I saw some reports about the sheer number of people who watched it right away.
Oh, the numbers are pretty staggering. The trailer pulled in 178.7 million views worldwide in just the first 24 hours.
Wow.
Yeah. To put that in perspective, that makes it the second most watched horror movie trailer.
Yeah. Only second. Okay, who beat it? Must be something huge.
Another big one from New Line Cinema, actually.
Okay. Makes sense.
But maybe even more impressively, Bloodlines actually surpassed the initial 24-hour numbers for the trailer for 28 years later, which was also super highly anticipated.
That's incredible. It really speaks to the staying power of this franchise. What do you think keeps drawing audiences back to these stories of, really elaborate ways to die?
Well, I think there's a few things going on. First, there's just that inherent fascination with the macabre, right?
Yeah.
That whole how are they going to go next guessing game.
Yeah, totally.
But beyond that, the Final Destination films created this really compelling, almost supernatural villain in deck itself. It's not some masked killer you can fight. It's this pervasive force just trying to fix its plan.
Right, reasserting its order.
Exactly. And the idea that this film is digging into the origin, one family's specific connection to this force, well, that adds a layer of intrigue we haven't really fully explored before.
Yeah, exactly. This isn't just, oops, survived a plane crash, now weird stuff happens. This is tied to a specific point in time, a ripple started by the grandmother's premonition. It really makes you think about the mechanics of Death's design in this universe.
And what's fascinating here is the implication of, inherited fate. Stephanie isn't just facing a current danger. She's dealing with the echoes of something that happened decades ago. It really raises questions about whether you can truly escape a destiny that was set in motion before you were even born,
It's like the universe has a balance sheet, right? And if someone cheats the system, the bill eventually comes due, maybe even with, interest passed down to the next generation. Now, speaking of glimpses, we heard there was some early footage shown at CinemaCon. No spoilers, obviously, but what kind of vibe, what kind of setup were we talking about?
Right, yeah, they showed about 7 minutes. And it really leaned into those inventive and, frankly, pretty gruesome scenarios the franchise is famous for.
Okay, good.
It focused on two brothers, Bobby and Eric Campbell. They're Stephanie's cousins. And they attempt this really audacious, kind of disturbing way to try and cheat death. It involves exploiting a severe peanut allergy.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah.
That sounds intense.
It is. The scene apparently unfolds in a hospital, and in classic Final Destination style, involves an everyday object turning deadly, in this case, a vending machine.
Ah, the vending machine. I heard something about that.
Yeah. So Bobby tries to get a snack. Things go horribly wrong, naturally, and that leads them into an MRI room.
Yeah.
And that's where things escalate in a very magnetic and bloody way.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. It definitely gives you a taste of the creative, kind of Rube Goldberg-esque, over-the-top deaths we expect from these movies.
MRI machines and powerful magnets. Yeah, definitely a recipe for disaster in this universe. Sounds like they're not pulling any punches with the gnarly stuff. Did the footage give any sense of the film's length or pacing, maybe?
Well, reports mention that the first 20 minutes of the film were shown. That might suggest a potentially more deliberate setup, maybe taking some time to establish the characters and the situation before all hell breaks loose. The overall runtime is apparently around 110 minutes, which would actually make it one of the longer entries in the series.
Interesting. Okay, so we've got the setup, the huge trailer buzz, a glimpse of that signature Final Destination mayhem. Who are the creative minds actually putting this thing together?
The film's directed by Zach Lepofsky and Adam Stein, and their pitch for the job is actually kind of legendary now.
Oh, yeah.
Apparently, during their Zoom pitch meeting with the studio execs, they orchestrated this really convincing freak accident, like a fire, a ceiling fan falling, using pre-recorded footage and visual effects to show they understood the franchise's whole vibe.
No way. That's amazing commitment. You've got to admire that kind of dedication to the bit, right?
Yep.
Especially when it actually lands you the directing gig.
Totally. And weaving the actual story, the screenplay, is by Guy Buzik and Laurie Evans-Taylor. The story itself is credited to John Watts, Spider-Man director, along with Buzik and Taylor, all based on characters Jeffrey Reddick originally created.
Okay.
And the producers include familiar names like Craig Perry and Sheila Hanahan-Taylor, who've been with the franchise, plus John Watts, Diane McGonigal, and Toby Emmerich. So it's a mix of seasoned Final Destination veterans and some exciting new creative blood.
Sounds like a really solid team behind it. Now, who are the faces we'll actually be watching as they desperately try to outsmart fate this time around?
Right. The lead cast features Caitlin Sanawana as our main character, Stephanie Lewis. Then there's Teo Brionis as her brother Charlie. Richard Harmon is Eric Campbell. Owen Patrick Joyner is Bobby Campbell. The guys from the CinemaCon footage, Raya Kihlstedt as Darlene Lewis, and Anna Lohr as Julia Campbell. So, yeah, a lot of fresh faces ready to face some seriously unfortunate circumstances.
Some new blood stepping right into death's path. But there's also a very, very familiar face making a return. Someone who's become almost synonymous with the franchise, hasn't he?
Absolutely. Tony Todd is back as William Bloodworth.
Yes.
He's that iconic, almost mythical figure who just seemed to possess this unsettling understanding of death's intricate plans. He always pops up to deliver those cryptic warnings to the survivors. His presence is always a huge highlight for fans.
He's just such an integral part of the whole Final Destination mystique, And I understand this will actually be his final film appearance.
Yes, it is. Very sadly, Tony Todd passed away in November of last year.
Yeah.
So this film marks his final on-screen role, which adds a pretty significant emotional weight to his return. There's even been some suggestion that we might actually learn more about Bloodworth's really enigmatic backstory in this film.
Oh, that would be incredible. He's always been such a mysterious character, hasn't he? Delving into his origins or his actual connection to Death's design could add a whole new layer to the franchise's lore.
It really would. Yeah, it would certainly deepen the mythology and give longtime fans something extra to, chew on.
Definitely. Now, the Final Destination series as a whole, it's been a pretty consistent player in the horror genre for a good while now. What's its overall impact and legacy, would you say?
Well, across the 5 previous films, the franchise has collectively grossed over $660 million worldwide.
Wow.
Which is, a testament to its enduring popularity.
Good.
And this year actually marks the 25th anniversary of the original Final Destination.
A quarter of a century.
Yeah, a film that really tapped into that very primal fear of everyday accidents just going horribly wrong.
A quarter of a century of dodging increasingly improbable dangers. It's amazing. While the core concept obviously has remained, it really sounds like Bloodlines is aiming to add some new dimensions to the formula.
It definitely appears so. I mean, while those signature, over-the-top accidental deaths are still going to be front and center, this film seems to be exploring the underlying mythology more deeply, specifically focusing on this inherited connection to death's design through this one family's history. Themes of, fate, consequence, the weight of the past. They seem to be much more prominent this time around.
So it's maybe not just about the shock value of the deaths anymore, but also digging into the underlying reasons why these specific people are being targeted?
Exactly. Yeah. The directors, Lepofsky and Stein, they've talked about wanting to kind of refresh the visual style of the series while also enhancing the tension and maybe even bringing more emotional depth to the characters as they face these, terrifying circumstances.
Interesting. And I also read that some of the death sequences in this film were actually inspired by real-life accidents. That just adds a whole other level of unsettling realism, doesn't it?
It really does. That grounding, however loosely, in real-world possibilities, that's definitely part of what makes the franchise so effective at playing on our anxieties about just the unexpected dangers that surround us every day.
Yeah, absolutely. And for those of us who want the full cinematic experience, I hear this one is really embracing the big screen in a big way.
Yes, definitely. Final Destination Bloodlines was filmed specifically for and will be released in IMAX theaters.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, those really elaborate and visually striking death sequences, they should be even more immersive and impactful on that massive screen.
Perfect for really feeling like you're right there dodging the flying debris. And finally, just practically speaking, what kind of content can viewers expect in terms of the rating? Any surprises there?
Nope, pretty much what you'd expect. The film has been rated R, the MPA citing strong bloody violence and grisly images, language throughout, some sexual content, and drug use.
So, yeah, it definitely sounds like it's staying true to the franchise's mature and often pretty graphic tone. Okay, good to know. Well, Binge Guide. The next show, listeners, Final Destination Bloodlines, is definitely shaping up to be a major contender for your next must-watch horror film. With that incredible buzz around the trailer, the intriguing premise digging deeper into the series' mythology, it really looks like a significant new chapter.
It certainly seems to hit all the key elements we've come to expect, right? Terrifying central concept, those inventive and shocking death sequences, and in this case, that compelling connection to the franchise's past with the return of Tony Todd in his final performance. Exploring a family's long history with defying death, that adds a fresh and potentially really engaging dimension.
Yeah, with a family history so deeply intertwined with cheating death and death itself seemingly holding this multi-generational grudge. The question isn't just how will they meet their end, but can anyone truly escape a fate that seems to run in their blood? What unexpected connections might your own family history have to the stories that grip you on screen? That's your final thought as we conclude this deep dive.
Until our next exploration.
This has been Binge Guide, the next show.